Welcome to the Actors Side. I'm Pete Hammond, and today we have Natalie Portman. Welcome.
Thank you.
Academy Award winner, Golden Globe winner, SAG, everything you can name. You won all those awards for Black Swan. You won a Golden Globe for Closer. We have watched you grow up on film, and you've had a very unusual career, I would say. You know,
This is true.
You know, I talk to a lot of actors, and I always wanted to be an actor, and I just did this, and I was going to act and act. And you know, right in the middle of it, you just went off to school and college and studied philosophy and everything but acting, I think. And at the same time, you're making Star Wars. So this is different.
Yeah.
What is your motivation now in terms of your acting career, having done it for so long? You know?
Well, I guess I've finally come to accept that I love it. I think I came from a family that was like very serious and very academic and not in movies at all, and were always kind of urging me to like, this is cute now, but like find something, you know, respectable,
Right.
you know.
It's nice you got that Oscar,
yeah. So I think that I had this thing always that I like had to do something serious with my life, and it took me a while to come to terms with the fact that I really love this, and it does feel serious to me in a way. Like I feel like my job is to consider other people's lives, and that I'm practicing empathy with everything that I do, and hopefully that's what audiences do too when they sit and care about another human being for a few hours,
Yeah.
and someone that they might never meet in their own life. And it has a lot of meaning for me, and I just love it. And sometimes that's also excuse enough, even if it's not like, even if it's not meaningful, if you just have pleasure and joy in it. So I think that's what I seek, and that's what I look for, and it's not like a career master plan. I obviously don't have one of those. If you look at like what films I've made, it's like you can't really be like, that's the type of stuff she does or whatever.
There is no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, you can do Star Wars movies and Thor,
Yeah.
and then you can go do A Tale of Love and Darkness, which you directed, your feature direct, which I saw over a year ago in Cannes, and it was just like extraordinary little movie there that you did, that you could see you put your heart and soul into. So you do the independent, and you do these bigger things. So what is it that makes you want to do?
Well, I feel like it's always seeking something, and sometimes it's to have fun, and sometimes it's because there's a person I'm interested in, or sometimes it's a genre that I don't really understand and I'd like to get a glimpse into it, and sometimes it's the story in my heart that I've been dying to tell my whole life, you know.
Yeah.
And there's a range, and I also love working, so I'm not also someone who I think could like sit around and be like, I'm going to wait for the exact perfect, like perfectly curated, like I like doing it. So when an opportunity arises that's interesting and feels like it'll take me on a new adventure, I want to go.
There's a lot of buzz now for your new movie, Jackie, which is extraordinary, I think. I saw the picture, and I was trying to think in your career where you have played such an iconic person that we all know, and the only one I could think of was Natalie Portman in Zoolander. This was a little bit different for you to play this kind of a role, real life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything in my comfort zone for sure. I was pretty terrified. To have someone that people know so well, you have to achieve such a level of closeness to the real person for them to even go with you on the emotional journey, you know, right away. You have to kind of like buy people's belief within the first 10 seconds of them seeing you, or they're gonna kind of, you know, just not go on the journey. So it's pretty terrifying, and she's a fascinating character.
Yeah, you know, you played Anne Boleyn, but most people aren't going to like...
No, knew how she talked.
Yeah, anything like this. But here, man, you really nail the accent.
Thank you.
But I have to say, I didn't look at this performance, and I told your director, Pablo Larraín, I used the word haunting. This is a very haunting performance because it's not an imitation. You are capturing the essence of her, at least as I recall, and the privacy. We didn't know much about her really either.
Right, and she was very conscious of protecting her privacy, and yeah, it was absolutely she was very cognizant of the sort of public-private divide, but that was really interesting for our movie because I think Pablo's approach allowed for this sort of, and Noah, the writer, Noah Oppenheim's approach too, allowed for this sort of refraction of a person where you see how a person can be many different things in different scenarios, and it allowed her to be, it allowed us to show the person she maybe really was by herself, how she was with her children, as opposed to how she was in front of the country, who she wanted other people to think she was, how she wished she actually was, all of those different sort of tensions at play.
As an actor, how do you prepare to play a role like that, just in getting the accent? I mean, what kind of work, how many weeks, months, whatever, and with coaches, what was the process for you there?
Well, I actually had quite a short period of time to prepare. Everything came together. It was like a very long process to find the right director that Darren had spent sort of trying out different ideas for directors for this project. And then once the idea of Pablo directing it sort of came to fruition, all of a sudden we were making the movie. So I had like a month to prepare. And I worked with this great dialect coach. I was living in Paris at the time. Her name's Tanya Blumstein, and she worked with me. Every day we would work for several hours, just listening to the tapes and watching the White House tour. And I just had it on, I had it on my iPhone, and I would listen to it while I was running or cooking or basically anything where I didn't have to be in dialogue with someone else. I would be listening to it, and and it was great because it's a very specific, very, very specific accent.
Mr. Valenti, would you mind getting a message to all our funeral guests when they land?
It really gives sort of a map of her background, because you hear the New York, Long Island kind of Grey Gardens-ness of it.
Right.
And then you also hear the finishing school, New England, aspirational, raw there, and the light L's, and and then the extravagance with which she talks. It's like slow, and certain words are drawn out. And, it's like it's really an amazingly specific accent and way of speaking that really affects the person too.
I will walk with Jack tomorrow, alone if necessary. And tell General de Gaulle that if he wishes to ride in an armored car, or in a tank for that matter, I won't blame him. And I'm sure the tens of millions of people watching won't either.
What other kinds of things did you do? They really turned you into her, certainly the costuming and the hair and everything.
Yes, we had an incredible costumer, Madeleine, and incredible hair and makeup, Catherine and and it was lucky that we shot in France, sort of out of convenience to both Pablo and I, who were both living there at the time. But it ended up having this unintended luck of all the people in France who have the artisanship that still is necessary to make the White House sets that were built by many French artisans.
Yeah.
The draperies that were made in France that they brought in, and the clothes, of course. That,
right.
You have like real couture kind of houses there. So it was really perfect. Perfect circumstances, and it helps so much, of course, when all of a sudden you look in the mirror and you're like, okay, maybe this will help sell that I'm this person who I'm not, to an audience who knows exactly what this character looks like.
I did want to ask you one more thing about Thor and Star Wars. That's a whole other thing, When as an actor, you suddenly, I think, take on a different responsibility when you're doing these kinds of movies, that fan base,
Yes.
can be lethal or they can be great, right?
It's amazing to get to make movies that becomes part of so many people's imaginations, because it really is so widespread. And now having a little boy too, you really see how much this becomes a part of play and imagination and your internal life as a kid. And it's a really incredible thing to get to be a part of. And as an actor, it's like a completely different skill, because when you're making those movies, you're working with so much blue screen and so much fantasy. Your imagination has to be so much larger, and it's really challenging for me. I don't feel like I've gotten it yet. I don't feel like I've understood it yet.
Wow.
And so it's something I'm fascinated by, because I'm really challenged by it more than anything, almost, because it's, when you're in a room that looks like a room and has all the things a room has in it, and you can interact with all that stuff, and all that stuff does what it does in life.
Sure.
You don't have to imagine anything.
Yeah.
You just are in the emotional space of your character. And, when you're doing those blue screen movies, you have to imagine everything outside and within, and you have to create the whole world. It's like being a kid again.
So more Marvel movies in your future?
Yeah, well, hopefully one day I'll figure it out. One day I'll get it.
That's good. Meanwhile, we have Jackie, and that's something to look forward to. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Natalie
so much.
Portman, for coming in here.